I brought the wrong O today.
So you've never been through that. You put on that pedestal, like,
My chest pains, but for it. Damn.
dude.
You're reminding me now of Tyrese on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah. You know, I relate to
I don't
what
need
he's
no
going
fucking
through.
tissue. Nigga, I wipe my own tears. Okay, Tyrese.
Dog,
No,
every time I
men
see
go
Tyrene-
through a lot of pain, man. And one of the things Tyrese said is, when there's a miscarriage, when there's an abortion, when there's a divorce, don't skip over the men. Men also have emotions.
Yeah.
Men also have feelings. Men also hurt. When the woman is like, no, for the sake of family peace, you're like, why are you not considering the man?
Now, a lot of women are narcissists. So for them, they feel absolutely no pain. Like, absolutely no pain. It's like, I told you about this when the first time we spoke. I was like, you know, when the cops came and assaulted me and my then wife was just watching, and then she drove my car and then went to a gig and then continued as if nothing had happened. And then, like, I'm in a holding cell and I only get let out because I finally got hold of my dad. Well, actually, it got myself out because, like, you know, I sent money to one of my lawyers. He got me out. And then only when I got out, that's when I could call my dad. I didn't have a phone because they confiscated my phone for like a week. It was in the SAP, whatever, 13 or something. So, or 31 or something like that. So, like, they have no emotion, and there's nothing that hurts more than you are really going through it. You've invested everything into this relationship to keeping it together. You know, you've been faithful. You didn't cheat. You didn't do any of that stuff. And it's like, you know, at some point in time, I'd even scroll through my Instagram DMs, like my requests, and being like, can you see these things? Like, they got a better ass than you. They got better bodies than you. They're sending me DMs and I'm ignoring all of them because I'm keeping focused on this. You know what I mean? And it seems like you don't see the sacrifice that I have to make just to keep this home together. And that's what Tyrese is going through. So, like, I empathize with what he's going through. And, like, but I also at the same time know that if I were to come out like that, you know, people would use that against me, like, as a cudgel. So, I'm not as brave as him to really let people into...
Be vulnerable to that level.
Yeah, well,
for public consumption.
Yeah, so, like, I dealt with it on my own. So the pain that I went through was really like, you know, when my niece passed, that's like I cried myself to sleep. And because of whatever traditional things that they were into, we didn't even get to be at her burial, you know. My mother and I and my aunts, because they had to do it before sunrise. But my little brother was there. Like, my little brother didn't sleep. My little brother is a thick guy. We're in Rotterdam, you know, near Guyana. And it was really cold that night, so we burnt a whole entire log, like a whole tree trunk, you know, kept us warm. But at a certain point in time, I was like, I'm going to bed somewhere. So my dad and I found a place where we could sleep, you know. We're sleeping, and then my dad woke up at like 4:30 saying, yo, they're going to do the burial right now. And then I was like, okay, cool. So I'm thinking he's getting ready. He's bathing, getting ready. He's leaving. When I wake up at 7, he's like, yo, it's already done. It's a wrap. Well, actually, I woke up at 7. I called my little brother. I was like, yo, where's Papa? You know what I mean? Like, yo, it's already done. They already thing. I didn't sleep. I went there, so I got to see her and everything else. Yeah. And so then I finally got my cousin to pick me up, and then I took my mother to where they buried my niece. And we prayed, you know. And then, we went our separate ways. My mother stayed, obviously, with my sister for another day or two or something like that. My aunts left themselves, and then me and my dad and my little brother drove back. And funnily enough, like, you know, I drove all the way there. And then I was just too tired to drive back. I only took over driving just before we got to Hammanskraal, I think, as we were passing Naboomspruit. And then, because we were just so busy in the drive, just chatting to my dad. At first I felt sleepy, so then I asked him to drive. And when he took over, I tried to nap a bit. I couldn't. It's just a heavy weight on us. And I was just discussing with my dad. It's like, you're old. My dad is 72 now. He's 10 years younger than Zuma. But because of the cancer and just the stress and the strain, Zuma is a lot fresher than my dad. Funnily enough. I guess he had to admit that, I was right. And so now we're doing a lot more family gatherings. We've got one now. By the time this episode comes out, I'll be on my way there. And we're putting the pieces back to our family structure, because I think when we lost my grandmother, that's when everyone just went their own way. And the way we lost my grandmother, she deteriorated. She had a stroke. Stroke stopped her from being able to speak, communicate, stand on her own. She recovered a bit, but her speech never recovered. And then we just watched her deteriorating. And, my grandmother as well, I think also my mother started to deteriorate with my grandmother getting ill. Funnily enough, my mother's an actual orphan. So my paternal grandmother was like her mother. And she was raised by her grandfather, who died the week or a couple of weeks before my parents got married. So it's spiritually, it's sort of like when my mother found my dad, her grandfather, who was her father at the point in time, like, okay, my job is done. You know what I mean? And then she then is married into the family. And when she gets there, my mother would just always talk about, how much she loved my grandmother and how my grandmother just embraced her and, like really gave her a mother finally. She's like, she finally had a mother, So after that, she was back to being motherless. And that also affected her as well. And then her aunt, who she stayed with, and like my aunts and uncle's mother, because my grandmother was the firstborn amongst her family. My mother's the firstborn in her family. Well, she's the secondborn, but she survived beyond infancy. The other ones died during the polio epidemic in the 50s. And the vaccine only came about, I think, in 52, 53. So my mother was born in 57. And her mother died in 63, And through everything that has happened, it's like I feel the gap that we have from not having my grandmother. My grandmother had my mother's twin brothers who passed away. They had a different father from my mother. And then my mother's brothers who came after them, all three of them, they had a different father. So that was, I guess, urban life at the beginning of it, because my grandmother was a Joburger. And that destabilized my mother's side of the family.